Indiana introduced some of the nation's toughest immigration policies 2 years ago, but since they were enacted, the number of people being deported has actually fallen. As Simon Thompson reports, a change in federal enforcement means some immigrants who have been living in the U.S. illegally might be here to stay.
Christian Cruz came to the US from Mexico City when he was 5 years old. Now 24, he lives in Indianapolis with his wife and 2 kids.
I'm glad I have them and taking care of them, man.
Cruz works as a lawnmower mechanic, making about $150 a week. He's undocumented, so when his name was run in a random police check, law enforcement officers saw that Cruz was supposed to have been deported 2 years prior. Police arrested Cruz and turned him over to immigration.
They was going to transfer me to Kentucky. Then from there, I was just going to wait for the plane and get on the plane and be in Mexico by Friday.
Once people heard the father and sole provider of 2 young children was going to be sent back to Mexico, a country he can't even remember, Cruz's story quickly spread across social networks.
Yo quisiera pedirles de todo corazón que por favor firmen esta carta y hagan una llamada a la oficina de migración para que mi hijo no sea deportado.
Indiana Undocumented Youth Alliance advocate Cynthia Perez put the web video together and helped coordinate a petition to convince immigration to reevaluate Cruz's case.
It's the first time that we have a public campaign where we advocate for somebody. Usually when somebody's about to get deported, they call an attorney and they say, you know what, can you represent me? And attorney does whatever they can do. But this time it was an attorney and it was the community advocacy piece that really made a difference in Christian's case.
I don't believe that politics and political petition should influence the administrative law process.
Senator Mike Delph authored a law clamping down on Indiana's undocumented immigrants. It requires law enforcement and the state's Department of Corrections to report any offenders whose immigration statuses can't be verified to the Department of Homeland Security's Immigration Division, ICE. Delph says the price of incarcerating undocumented immigrants costs the state nearly $12.5 million every year.
Anytime that ICE detains somebody and they go through the process and they are ordered by an administrative law judge to be deported, and then for political reasons that order is not followed, that demoralizes the enforcement of our immigration laws.
But when it comes to immigration policy, federal law trumps state law. President Obama announced a program in 2012 allowing undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. as children to apply for protection.
Eligible individuals who do not present a risk to national security or public safety will be able to request temporary relief from deportation proceedings and apply for work authorization.
The program expanded on a directive issued the year before, instructing ICE to focus on deporting immigrants with serious criminal records and to be more lenient on people with families and employment in the US. In the federal district that includes Indiana, the number of immigrants whose deportation cases were reviewed and were allowed to stay in the US has nearly doubled from about 1,400 in 2010, the year before the first directive took effect, to nearly 2,800 in 2013.
Very demoralizing. I know that there's been testimony on Capitol Hill from ICE law enforcement agents that have talked about politics being injected in what they do, and I think it's unfortunate.
The day before he was scheduled to be put on a plane to Mexico, Cruz was released from immigration custody.
Everybody left me. I was the only one there. So I was like, something's going on. Some wasn't looking right. So next morning, they came and told me that I was released.
Cruz was granted 6 more months in the country while he applies for deferred action, the federal program that gives temporary work visas and protection for immigrants. But with the application fee close to $500, Cruz says he's not sure when that's going to happen.
It's real hard, man. You can't get no real job. You got to work underneath the table. It's hard, man. It's hard. I had hard times, and I kind of still do, but I'm trying to get it together.
Simon Thompson joins us now for more. Simon, immigration did release Christian Cruz, but there's still some question of whether or not he'll be able to stay in the country.
So shortly after Christian was released, he was taken back into police custody for theft and resisting arrest. He wasn't turned over to immigration, but if he is charged, that's going to kind of factor into his case, and it could affect whether or not he's allowed to stay in the US with his family.
Now, if he lived in a different state, would his status, let's say in a state that's a little bit more lenient, would his status be any more different than here?
Well, I mean, if he lived in California or Illinois and he was picked up in a traffic stop today, I don't think authorities or law enforcement would have even looked into his status, because he probably would have had a driver's license. You know, in these states, undocumented people can get driver's licenses. That's not the case in Indiana. But you know, even on a larger scale, most of the cities where undocumented people live in these states, like Chicago, San Francisco, LA, there's, you know, they're sanctuary cities, so there's ordinances that kind of tell authorities to not look into people's immigration statuses. Yeah.
President Obama has not been able to pass a comprehensive immigration reform. What are some of the obstacles that he's running into?
Well, a lot of conservatives say that a pathway to citizenship or amnesty would provide an incentive for people looking to come into the country illegally. So there's this fear that it's going to give people the belief that if they come in illegally and they stay here a while, at some future point there's going to be a reform, and they're going to, you know, the government's going to turn around and give them status. You know, take Christian's case. He was ordered deported, you know, before Obama's lenient policies came through, but because he stayed and didn't leave when he was supposed to, he's now eligible for a temporary renewable work visa, in addition to, you know, protection from deportations.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Simon. Appreciate it.